Hello and welcome again to Reopening Hamilton County Schools, a video program where we share information with you on reopening our schools for parents, students, and also the community. And today we're going to go back and talk about athletics with Brad Jackson, who's in charge of athletics for the district and Hamilton County Schools. And some things have changed, Brad, in the last week or so as the governor has changed the way we look at contact sports, football, soccer, and those things that we're kind of on hold. So what has changed now, looking at the high school level, and we'll talk about middle school in just a minute, but at the high school level, where are we now with sports in Hamilton County Schools for this fall?
Yes, sir. Since the governor's order was signed last Friday, schools were permitted across the state to ensure that they follow the strict TSSAA guidelines that are now in place, that the TSSAA's legal team had worked with the governor's legal team. And so there's a lot of very strict guidelines that must take place. But as of today, all football teams in our area and across the state have opened up for full contact practice. So they still have to go through their acclimatization period, which they could have started last Friday, which is a couple of days of helmets only, and then 3 extra days with helmets, shoulder pads. And so probably sometime this week, you will start to see contact taking place at full capacity. We do have a lot of guidelines in place that the district has put into place. Currently, we are following the National Federation of High School guidelines, and due to the fact that the governor has allowed full contact, we are now what is known as the National Federation High School Phase 3, which is still some limitations on things, but one is that balls and different equipment can be used by groups and pods. We do have guidelines in place that student athletes' temperatures are taken every morning by the coach, and they have to ask several different questions before they can even start to practice. So we have those in place, and so we're hoping that this season will go as smooth as possible. We understand there will be bumps in the road, but we're trying to prepare for everything. And our coaching and staffs across the district and our athletic directors at each individual school has really been, they've been so important to get all this information out. And we're hoping that everybody will stay safe.
And then as we look at the season schedule, are we at the point where seasons will start basically as they were originally scheduled, and as far as first games, and what are we looking at there?
Yes, sir. Football, since the governor signed it early, he was not supposed to originally change this order until August 29th, and so the TSSAA had some different revisions and for the scheduling. And but since the governor did sign this last Friday, it opened the door up for all athletics in girls soccer, because that's the season taking place right now. That is a contact sport, and football, that they will be able to start their seasons per the TSSAA calendar. So there's been no delay now.
Okay, and then you mentioned coaches asking certain questions that players have to respond to. I guess those are essentially health questions, or anyone in your family may be sick, or those kind of things, so we can figure out how our players are doing health-wise before they go into the practice facility.
Yes, sir. There was some previous or prior guidance from the National Federation of High Schools, what is called a COVID symptom check. But since the governor has allowed contact sports, there's been several other different questions that are asked to the athletes if they have loss of smell, taste, different kinds of, if they've been around people that were might be tested positive for the COVID-19, if they have different kind of abdominal issues, things like that that were not originally on. Some of those were not originally on the first COVID checklist. And so now we've added all the CDC new types of symptoms that they have determined that could possibly be COVID-19. So all of those things are in place. Like I said, temperatures are taken every morning or every time before they practice. So there's a lot of safety going in, and we're trying our very best to keep every student athlete and coaches safe at our schools.
How will games actually work as we look to move into the season where games start? Fan participation, what that might look like, what's open, what's not, the guidelines that we have looking at the actual games as they begin.
Yes, sir. Each stadium, and as of right now, we're looking at between 1/3 to 1/2 capacity. Athletic directors and head coaches are starting to get together what the stadium or gymnasium's capacities will be. And from there, we will decide, or the district office, the superintendent and his senior leadership team will decide what is in the best interest of our school district and how many fans are allowed into each contest. Each school will probably have the autonomy to decide how these will be distributed, if there is limited capacity, whether or not so many family members per student can attend, and how will that work. It will just depend on each of the school's facilities, because there are so many differences in capacity levels and how we will deal with that. We are trying to see about concession stands. I've been in contact with Dr. Hendricks, Chief Medical Officer for the Hamilton County Health Department, and we are trying to determine if certain items should or should not be sold in the concessions. So and social distancing, how do we monitor that when people are trying to, buy something at halftime and other things. So there's a lot that we're still working through. The governor's decision was a lot sooner than we expected. And so we're happy for that. But on the other hand, we are now trying to make sure that we handle all the appropriate different situations that take place. How do we handle gates? How do we, handle money? And what kind of concessions, like I said, will be available? Whether or not bands can be at events. So right now, we're trying to figure out where bands will be able to sit and play, if that's what the school principal wants them to do, because for social distancing guidelines, usually bands play in the stands, which is a wonderful thing. But due to that, and separating the band members themselves from the spectators will even limit capacity at different stadiums tremendously. So we're trying to work on different areas that they could possibly be in to play. So there's a lot that goes into this, and each individual school is trying to do their very best in coming up with these operational procedures that must be met in order to even have an event.
And all of those things essentially being done to try to make the spectator event as safe as possible for everyone who attends, our students and our parents and community, and our athletes, keeping them healthy as well. So there's a lot to consider as we look into this. So now, what kind of differences are we looking at the middle school level, and what are our middle school fall sports going to look like at this point?
Yes, sir. Like I said, in high school, and I'll finish up with high school, the girls' soccer and football are now on schedule. Golf has been going. They were a low-risk sport. So golf, cross country, and girls volleyball are now full capacity, dealing with their seasons and schedules. But once again, there are some restrictions that they have to follow at practices and things like that. Masks are recommended every single time that a student is not in physical strenuous activity. So we're really trying to make the best out of this situation. In our football right now, we're going to middle school. Middle school football was able to start yesterday, and so they will have to go through their 5-day acclimation period, 2 days of helmets, 3 days of helmets and shoulder pads before they can start. We did have to, because the middle school sports seasons are on a 4-season calendar. Their time or their dates are very limited. We do not fall under the TSSAA calendar, and so there's not much leeway in the way ours is set up due to certain situations, and in this particular case, COVID-19. So in middle school football, their season was cut short by 1 week, and we're just lucky that they are being able to have a season at all, because if the governor would have waited till August 29th, we wouldn't have had a season for middle school football. But now we are. The week 1 is going to start up probably around August 23rd. And so due to that, we had to lose the first week. We have 2 different divisions in football at the middle school level. We have the East Division and the West Division. And your West schools, they don't have a full schedule. And so they are those coaches have decided that they will have a bye week on week 1, and then they will finish the other 6 games and should be done by October 1st at the latest date. Your East Division already had a full schedule, from my understanding from the coaches, and due to that, and because of the season, we had to cancel game 1 or week 1, and so they will start on week 2 the same week as August 23rd, that week of August 23rd. Softball is taking place. Softball is able to go. No shutdowns or change of seasons for softball. The only thing is we're trying to work through the guidelines for softball, or I am, because softball is a spring sport for other TSSAA, and that was not one of the sports that they sent out specific guidelines on. So as of right now, softball is following the general TSSAA guidelines or mandates that are currently in place, and they are also following the National Federation of High School Phase 3. And then cross country and tennis for middle school are also taking place with no cancellations of season. Everything is on go. And so everything so far, it seems, I haven't heard anything negative from any of these coaches, that everybody is ready to go, and hopefully we'll have a successful season.
Sounds great. Thank you, Brad Jackson, for sharing with us the changes in our athletics for the fall and this football season, and all the other seasons that come up, soccer, and those things that are so important, golf, so important to our student athletes, that it's a part of the school scene and a part of the school experience. So good to see that those are going to be able to continue, and we're going to keep that as safe as possible for our kids. Thanks. Yes, thanks for sharing the latest with us, and I'm sure we'll be checking back with you as things progress throughout the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for joining us for Reopening Hamilton County Schools, where we've shared more information with you about how schools will reopen on August the 12th. In the meantime, make sure you check our website every day to understand where we are on our phase tracker on how schools will open. You'll find that at the top of our homepage. Look for the phase that we're in currently. Click on that right at the top of the homepage, and you'll see the data tracker that allows you to look at exactly where we are with cases in the community and what phase that puts us in as a school district. We hope you join us again for Reopening Hamilton County Schools.